talk a little bit about how we're going to bring cloud to the edge today. And you've probably all heard a ton about how the world is becoming more connected, intelligent, and autonomous. So really, we should probably step back and ask ourselves, first of all, why is that going to happen? What's behind it? There's a tremendous amount, staggering numbers behind the business transformation that's going to be made possible with the availability and accessibility of real-time data coming off the edge where the real world lives and being able to derive insights from that data. And so if we look at that, just a simple example, if you go into retail, retailers today have over $1 trillion a year of missed profit because of inventory mismanagement. Overstocks, understocks, and selling items below cost. $1 trillion a year. That's just one chunk of the problems in retail, and retail is just one sector. So a tremendous amount of economic value to be created by using this data from the edge. If you look at the numbers are really staggering. We're going to have 4x the number of connected devices, growing to 62 billion connected devices by 2023. And there we go. By 2018, the number of devices, Internet of Things devices on carrier networks in 2018, just next year, is going to exceed the number of mobile phones on carrier networks. And so I remember back, 3-4 years ago, where we would look at IoT and think, are we really going to see a tremendous amount of carrier network connected IoT devices? Here we are now, 4 years later, 2018, we're going to exceed those. The challenge in IoT, though, isn't really just about how do I connect and get the data, how do I get the connection? It's really about how do I go do something with that data? How do I make use of that? And so IDC estimates, if you look at this challenge of connections and the amount of data we're talking about, they're saying over 49% or 50% or so of the connected IoT devices are going to be network constrained. How is that? A tremendous amount of this data today flowing is actually video data. You look at video data, huge amounts of data. You want to connect all that stuff up to the network and feed the cloud to do the analysis. Big network constraints. And so a lot of effort going into how do I make my network bigger and faster? But that's not the answer alone. If you look at trying to solve this problem, more and more data network isn't going to solve it. 4x number of connections, more and more devices going on carrier networks. What we're going to see is a move towards more of that cloud and that compute at the edge so we can actually filter out a lot of that raw data that's not really adding any insider value. One of my colleagues calls the edge compute the spam filter for the cloud. And it's true. If you imagine, for example, a video camera at a 7-Eleven looking at an aisle that's empty. That aisle's empty, 70, 80% of the time. There's no reason to send that raw video up to the data center to say the aisle's empty, the aisle's empty. What we're going to see is a lot more intelligent filtering at the edge. And for businesses, that really is not about data. I have yet to have a single retailer or single customer come to me and say, hey, Joe, what I really need is more data. How do I get the data? What retailers or what businesses need is insights. And so if you look at IDC, they're forecasting 49% of this data will actually be acted on and processed at the edge to drive some level of condensing of that data down to more meaningful insights. And with this, you see more challenges then, of course, in terms of how do we handle the volume of data. We have latency requirements. A lot of IoT applications need real-time control. So you look at data, you do some analysis, and you figure out how am I going to go use this data to drive some key action. And then, of course, security. Video surveillance, I mentioned video briefly with 7-Eleven. IP cameras shipments, and this isn't installed base, shipments in 2020 will be 201 million units. So we're going to have a massive number of IP cameras all wanting to be connected and sharing their information. The only way to deal with this volume of data is that kind of processing at the edge. Just to look, for example, China has over 20 million AI-enabled cameras deployed today. Why? Because they need to go process and manage that data at the edge. They can't move all the data up into a central location. Autonomous driving is another space where we're going to see the same challenges where you've got a huge amount of data coming in through cameras and sensors. You have to process that data in the car real time at the edge. And of course, you need to deal with high bandwidth requirements occasionally to the car. You need to drive low latency, and then of course, strong privacy. So with that, we want to shift gears and talk to a couple customers today, or a couple partners today, who are focused on solving these challenges. And first, let me move the slides. First, we want to actually bring John Gilbert up from Rudin. He's Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer. Rudin Management Company is the premier real estate developer and management company in New York City. And they've done some really interesting things around using technology at the edge. So John? Thanks for joining us.
Joe, thanks for having me.
So you've done some amazing things. We've been working together for 3-4 years now. Can you talk to us a little bit about how technology is really helping you guys?
Sure. Well, we used to be a real estate company that dabbled in technology. Now we're a technology company that dabbles in real estate. The family owns over 15 million square feet of office and residential. And in 2009, our local utility, Con Ed, came to us and said, we want to give you data. We want to give you signals based upon the blackout of 2003. If all of you remember, 55 million people lost power. And we said, that's great. We'd love it. We'd love that early warning to be able to program our elevators. They feel that frequency dip in the grid, go to the nearest floor. Problem was, I didn't have a catcher's mitt. I couldn't catch that data. I couldn't throw it to a base to make it actionable. So what we saw was the need for buildings to have a brain, to create an operating platform, a true operating system that could take external data, take internal data, take BMS data, take data that we weren't even collecting yet, like occupancy data. Wouldn't it have been great if this building, this space, actually had occupancy sensors that measured the number of people coming in so that it could actually predict and actually create a level of comfort so all of us didn't feel either hot or cold when we walked in here? You walk into a Rudin building today, that's exactly what happens. And what we've done, Joe, is we've taken that, and the system is called Nantum. We did something that somebody my age isn't supposed to do, which is to spin off a software company. We created a software company, and that company is literally taking that operating platform and allowing our buildings, 10 million square feet of our office space, to use less energy, to provide greater comfort, and ultimately to take these edge devices, data that we were already collecting, blow up the silos that that data currently exists in, and correlates it. So today, if I showed you, was just backstage. Right now, there's 22,156 people in our commercial office portfolio. I'm running at approximately 25 megawatts of power. I've consumed over 500,000 gallons of water and about 94 M-pounds of steam. So having that data, understanding whether those patterns are either similar to other days or not, we can then effectuate what we're going to do tomorrow and run better buildings.
So what considerations, in terms of being able to get the data, provide some intelligence, and then even get to autonomous control, what considerations does that drive, do you think, for developers and building operators in the position you're in?
Drives everything. I mean, we now, when we design a building, we design it from the inside out. We design core, understanding the IT infrastructure, the sensor networks that we're going to need, and then ultimately, as prescriptive data develops their app store, what are the applications that other app developers are actually creating that we could deploy on our platform? Having an OS is so important. It's such common sense, right? Except for real estate folks don't understand it, that they are now. But unless you have that operating system, you're going to end up with 20 dashboards, looking at 20 different data sets, and having all of those silos not talking to each other.
So how's this deployment of IoT and utilizing the data changed your operations over the past 4 years?
Well, the amazing thing is that our operating team has really merged with our IT staff. There is no more Chinese wall. Our top lieutenants, the Rudin family has owned real estate in the city of New York for over 100 years, still owns that first parcel that they bought in 1905. It's now 641 Lex. But the merging of this and our operating engineers, when you add up their collective experience, is over 300 years. So what we've done is we've taken, and Matt and JJ are both here from Prescriptive Data, we've taken these young, really smart coders, data scientists, and done a Vulcan mind meld for all you Trekkies out there with the 300 years worth of operating experience. And what an amazing amalgam that has occurred when you basically take that experience and put it in the cloud, push it to the edge, and great things happen.
Well, so great results there. Do you see where else you could maybe extend this into other types of business or other models?
Sure. We're selling this product now with a software company, Prescriptive Data, to our friendly and unfriendly competitors. We're onboarding it now into 3 different states. We're actually out with Intel in Detroit right now with the other part of the team. We're very excited about that. And I think what's interesting, if the movie The Graduate was made today, I think Mr. Robinson wouldn't have said plastics to young Dustin Hoffman. He would have said sensors. He would have said data. And I think that's exactly where we are in terms of the world in which we live. I think the most important thing is, and we ask one question to every coder and data scientist that we hire, what's more important, the algorithm or the domain expertise? If they say the algorithm, they don't get hired. Because it's about solving problems. It's really about taking what we understand as the problem and creating a solution for it.
So with amazing results that you've seen in efficiency, are you having tenants now request this and look for this in the properties that they want to lease?
Yeah, Joe, we will save this year $5 million across our portfolio just in OpEx. And what's amazing is that our tenants are coming to us and saying, hey, I'm the chief sustainability officer of company X. I need this data in order to do my job, in order to create a corporate sustainability policy for my company. You need to give me this data. So the old days, real estate was buy a piece of dirt, dig a hole, pour a foundation, set steel and glass, lease it up. We still do that, but now what we do is we take the data that we collect, we remember it, we learn from it, we express it, and we share it as quickly as we possibly can with our customers. Now, what does that mean? It means suddenly we have stickiness. Suddenly the tenants who are part of our family want to remain a part of that family.
That's fantastic. So do you see this extending in any other areas in real estate?
We're talking to airports. We've actually deployed it into New York City homeless shelters. We're looking at hospitals, college campuses, you name it, large residential buildings. We think on the residential side, water is huge. We're working with some very exciting companies that are doing leak detection in our large apartment buildings. You get a leak, bad things happen. You get mold, you get relocation. So we want to grab those leaks right after they happen and fix them right away.
Well, John, that's fantastic. Thanks for sharing with us some real concrete examples of how data is really helping transform your business. And appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Joe, thank you. Intel is a great partner. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Next, I'd like to invite Daniel Herbout. He's head of IoT for T-Mobile, and he's going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges Intel and T-Mobile and the others in the industry have in pulling this capability together. It turns out that it's not that simple to move massive amounts of real-time data up into the cloud and do the processing and be able to drive actions back at the edge. So with that, let's welcome out Daniel. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you for having me.
So, we talked about some of the challenges and massive amounts of data and the video we mentioned. Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen relative to those challenges?
Yeah, I think we've seen a lot of themes that I heard here today, very familiar in terms of the massive amounts of data. I think also the opportunities that come with them, people realizing for the first time what was invisible to us before can be made visible. As part of that, people are really having to rethink as well, as you pointed out, where does that sit? And I think the last thing that we hear a lot that maybe I haven't heard so much today is as you move into that space, the fear of being the next Equifax, the kind of the security, the privacy elements, not just how are you taking care of yourself, but now you have to worry about your partners as well.
Yeah, everybody in the path is a part of that solution and that worry, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at cellular providers and telco and data providers, there's a lot of talk about moving compute to the edge of the network. Can you talk a little bit about what you think about, as you move even all the way to the edge and you see the devices at the edge, what considerations do we need to make there?
That's a great question, and we see both those things. We certainly see the compute moving to the edge of the network, but the part that really resonated with me, what landed us in this conversation, was also to the endpoint, really to the edge point device, and it's something that I see really bottom up, where you had mentioned the number of IP cameras that are being produced. We see that, and we see more and more of them coming with the compute on board. And as these devices proliferate and the usage of them does, that means that more and more of this is going to happen on the endpoint, because there is no network, fixed or wireless, that can handle this kind of ramp. And so also to your point, it doesn't make sense if you're transporting data just to transport it. You really want to deliver the insights.
You'd like to have that be data-rich data that we're sending, right?
Indeed.
So we heard a little bit about Rudin and what they're doing with buildings, and they're doing some things in smart cities. A lot of press about smart cities.
Yeah.
What do you see happening in that space?
Smart cities it's so exciting. It's really great to be able to take this technology and bring it to environments where it makes a difference to us as citizens, that people get to participate in. One of our showcase cities is Las Vegas. I'm a product guy at heart, and so I get really excited at seeing the solutions that we're piloting and bringing to market there. But one of the things that I really try and bear in mind is that this is a market where if everybody's not winning, nobody's going to win. So you can be a very large city, you can be a Rudin scale enterprise, and this has to be an OpEx-friendly solution. Nobody is going to forward invest without clarity about what they're getting out. And so for an operator, that means that we really have to partner first. We have to make sure that we're stepping into these complex environments and really bringing the ecosystem together. And that's something that Intel's been so critical for us as a partner. We've got some phenomenal early stage startups that have come to us through Intel, as well as obviously the technology partnership that we have.
Yeah, I have yet to meet a smart city that has a budget. And so the challenge is it's going to take a village of partners to go deploy these things.
Well, it is. And I view us as being successful when they don't have to have a budget. We should be delivering to them the operational savings and the forward positive revenue that makes it make sense for them.
While we're on the topic of smart cities, autonomous driving is going to really profoundly change the makeup of cities. So you're going to see probably a lot fewer cars. You're going to have a lot more intelligent traffic management. Cars will be able to understand parking. Can you talk a little bit about how you're anticipating the needs of autonomous driving and kind of delivering that kind of footprint?
Yeah, well, first I can say I personally anticipate that need because I spend way too much of my time either in traffic or suffering from the effects of it. I live in Seattle. I travel to New York and the Bay Area a lot, so wherever you go, I mean, most estimates are about 30 to 35% of traffic that's in a major urban environment is people looking to park. And so you get really an amplification effect that just chokes the whole system. And this is really the first time in the generation of automobiles that we can try and solve that. And this goes right back to having compute at the edge point. So our work is to make sure that the sensors, that the intelligence that is going in, not just from a solution standpoint, but is able to talk to each other so that you've got not just vehicle to vehicle and vehicle to cloud, but endpoint, most of the street lights, the control point lights, all the different infrastructure, that also really needs to operate in such a low latency environment that it's going to have to be simply endpoint to endpoint.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think security, as we talked a little about earlier, security is going to be really critical to solving those problems as well.
Security, and I think hand in hand with that is identity. The idea of the devices being able to have their own identity, or that we don't have to give up our identity to partake of services. We saw some really great concepts about shared vehicles and being able to seamlessly use that, but there's trust involved there. You have to be able to trust that you get to do that without giving away your identity and your data.
So can we talk a little bit about these deployments, and as you've worked with clients, my own experience, I think there's been a really big push towards move everything as you can to the cloud, and as we see this huge amounts of data coming at the edge, there's some tension in the economics. Can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing?
We're definitely seeing that. So marginal pricing is the first indication that you always get that a resource is beginning to be constrained, and you can see the hints of that, where I think as we all got out the gate, the easiest architecture to conceive of and deploy is to have a device connected to the cloud. And the more complex that gets, the more stakeholders are involved, and the more solutions that are interacting with each other, the more challenging that is. It's more challenging for latency. It's more challenging for business model rights. It's a lot of the promise that we see in blockchain is really having those transactions not just moved from a compute standpoint, but obviously from a smart contract standpoint into the ecosystem itself. And we see the need today for that.
So as you move forward, where do you think you're going to see the next scale deployments happen? What's going to be the exciting next things to watch for?
I feel like we're really seeing the beginning of that tidal wave in large manufacturing. We saw it throughout today. I've seen a bunch of retail examples.
Whales and farming.
Whales and farming will come. I'm not, myself, I don't see as much of those, but there's not a big retailer that we're not working with or that is not deep into this space doing really amazing things. There's not a large manufacturer that doesn't realize they have to have this vision in terms of what is happening on the factory floor. And we really see those deployments taking off.
Well, Daniel, thanks for joining us. Appreciate your time to come share a little bit of a few of the challenges and how T-Mobile's working to solve those.
Yeah, thank you. It's been so great working with Intel, and thank you again for having me here.
Great. Thank you very much. So I think in summary, we know there's tremendous economic value to be derived from analyzing this data at the edge. As an industry, we're maturing and learning and understanding that we're not going to just move everything to the cloud. There's going to have to be a balance of how we manage traffic, cost of bandwidth, amount of bandwidth, and compute costs at the edge to deliver that insights in a cost-effective and timely fashion.